Ehab, I wanted to go to you for a minute. We're fellow exiles, right? By choice or or forced to not be be so far away from home. And yet one of the issues missing, or one of the stories missing from many of these conversations is, the exiles, the people who had to leave their homes. The question of the right of return is not even really, a subject matter even in a lot of the conversations around moving forward on Israel-Palestine. But I was really moved by one of your passages. I think you have the book right there, in describing what it was like for most of the citizens of the region in Nakba, after a Nakba. That's the word that a lot of Arabs used to refer to in 1948. I wonder if you could read the first stanza of the poem, because I think it really captures the impact of what both the exiles and the rest of the Arabs in the region had to put up with in the aftermath of 1948, and the promises of restitution and how our Arab tyrants would fix things in the aftermath. I wonder if you could perhaps read that passage, maybe first in Arabic and then in English.
Sure. I'll read the Arabic and you can read the English.
Sure.
Okay. 60 سنة فاتت واحنا على الجوع والايد صابرين بالعسكر والمماليك قابلين للنمرود والفرعون ساكتين الليل لو عدى بنعيده الخوف نرضاه ونبوس ايده والظلم بنينا له تمثال وسجدنا له صرنا عبيده 60 سنة فاتت وفلسطين اهي بنت يتيمة لعمامها فاكرين فين سيفهم ولا عاد اخوالها لهم قيمة.
I'll read that. So understand, obviously, that the English, somewhat captures some of the emotional resonance of.
It will never stand up to the Arabic.
It never will. But here's an attempt. 60 years went by, enduring the hunger and bondage, obeying the generals and the Mamluks, bowing to Nimrud and Pharaoh. If night dies, we recreate it. We embrace fear, bow to it. We build a monument for the tormentor, and we worship it. 60 years ignoring you, Palestine, the orphan girl, whose paternal uncles lost their swords and maternal uncles lost their dignity.
Look, when I wrote this, which is over 15 years ago now, it's exactly 15 years ago, actually, because it's the 60th anniversary of the Nakba, and we're in the 75th now. I personally did not feel like an exile. Now I feel like an exile. I can't go back to Egypt because of the current regime and my work. It's a very difficult feeling. And you mentioned we're so far away from the discussion that Rami and Maya were saying. We're so far away from talking about the right of return. We're talking about much earlier stages of coexistence. So that feeling of not being able, and I've heard it firsthand from so many Palestinians. My ex-wife was Palestinian, her whole family Palestinians. They chose to move to Canada because they can't stay in Egypt long term, and they have no hope of ever going back to Palestine. So that was a situation where I did not live at that point, but I could very much feel, I could very much connect to. The role of the artist here, whether writer or whatever kind of art, is to keep things alive, to keep the idea alive, to keep the spirit alive. The negative side is that maybe people live on hope too much, that it takes them away from action in a way. And here I'm going to go also and venture into another direction, like the religious understanding in the Middle East is also makes people Allawiyin. I don't know how to translate that, but they depend on unreal things because there is a religious prophecy that they understand, or justice will come, and that prevents them from taking action. But I think I captured my activist side analysis in this stanza of the poem that I read, where I said, her maternal uncles have lost their swords, her paternal uncles have lost their dignity. And that's because I feel that for Palestine, for the Palestinian people, the normal, natural allies are the Arabs around them. And that's what really happened in 1948. They tried to fight for, but when those people have gone into decline after decline after decline, that unfortunately reduces that element. And thus, I don't share your optimism at all at this stage, because very few communities around the world gave justice willingly, or gave in willingly. There has to be some sort of balance of power. I remember sitting with Eric Asherman, the Rabbi for Human Rights, and he did a very interesting thing. We're sitting like that, and he said, put your chair on my foot while we're sitting and talking. And then, no, please don't. and then talk to me about why I should remove my chair from on top of your foot. Give me reasons. And if you pinch me in my thigh, I might think of that. But if you can't pinch me in my thigh, I will not do anything if I'm comfortable like that. And that's unfortunately, I mean, in my older years, I've become more realistic that Israelis will not give in to, as long as they are comfortably living. Exactly. The reason why the activists on the ground that are demonstrating for democratia at this point don't want the Palestinians, because they still want to sell their movement, whatever it is, to the couch activists across Israel. And they know that selling will be much more difficult if there are Palestinians that are missed. And by the way, that's the same mentality here in Montreal. When I speak to my progressive Israeli friends who want to do democratia, or have some action here like it's happening all around the world, they say the same thing. We don't want it to appear as an action for Palestine in any way. Otherwise, we'll not be able to gather masses. So this is the reality. I mean, we can look at it emotionally, but we can also look at it as a marketing thing. And either way we look at it, it doesn't lead to justice for the Palestinians.